Describe in single words only the good things that come into your mind. About your mother?
My mother?
Yeah.
Let me tell you about my mother.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
Have you ever been in an institution? Cells.
Cells.
Do they keep you in a cell? Cells.
Cells.
When you're not performing your duties, do they keep you in a little box? Cells.
This causes it. This causes it. This causes it. Information overload. All the electronics around you poisoning the airwaves.
You are listening to the High Tech Low Life podcast, a cyberpunk media retrospective. High Tech Low Life contains language and themes not suitable for all audiences, as well as spoilers for the content being covered. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back, everybody, to the High Tech Low Life podcast. It's your hosts, Eric and Josh. I'm Eric.
I'm Josh.
This week we've got some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that we are probably on the cusp of a fascist regime change. It's likely to result in the death or displacement of millions of people. Also, not to mention the catastrophic oncoming climate disaster that we're almost certainly to possibly all perish from in the near future if it isn't directly addressed by a regime that's almost certainly unlikely to address anything about it. But the good news is we're joined by Jeff from the Astronomica podcast.
Well, I'm glad I'm here to completely balance out all that other stuff.
Thank you. The good news is so much better. That's why I saved it.
Yeah.
It's so much more powerful.
You know what I really appreciate about you, Eric, is that you never set a high bar for someone to try to clear.
You're right. No expectations here. No, we do appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
We're talking about a book that, I'll just say it up front, I fucking loved.
Yeah.
And wasn't expecting to love so much, I guess.
Yeah, it absolutely fucking ruled. And I am so glad to have past, present, and I hope to God future guest Jeff.
I loved this book. This book was completely not on my radar at all until you guys mentioned it, and I don't know how that is.
Yeah, I had a vague thought in my head. I remember when we were, initially putting together our giant list of stuff that we can cover, and I was just going through a dozen lists of cyberpunk movies, cyberpunk books, and stuff like that. And I remember thinking at the time, oh yeah, I think maybe I read that. And I had this vague notion in my head that I had read it and it wasn't very good. I was so fucking wrong. I have clearly never read this. I don't know how I avoided reading it. It is exactly like Cyber City 080808.
Right.
And this would have been a tentpole of my personality at the age of 15.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is that looking at the various covers this book has had over the years, the covers, especially in the 1980s and 90s, were atrocious.
That's exactly what I came to, that this book was done bad by its cover.
And I think 100%. I feel like the cover art for this book on the edition that I have is it looks like it could be from William Shatner's Tech War.
Yeah, exactly. It's and I can only imagine that in 1988 I saw this book in a bookstore, picked it up and went, nah, that's not my speed, man.
Yeah, that's just some trash.
Yeah.
There was no Goodreads or anything to go check it out and realize, oh no, this is actually a really great work of cyberpunk.
It's a great literary work, period.
I agree. And the author has done a lot of books, and it's several more. I guess this is part of a series, technically, according to Wikipedia.
This is the first of a trilogy.
So, I'm really eager to read the next.
Same here. We'll get into it a little bit more. We obviously got a lot to talk about on this book episode. This may be a two-parter. we don't know right now. So we're just going to have to roll.
We're feeling our way through
it. Yeah. A lot of stuff happened in the last week, which changed the way in which I read this book, for one thing, because I was in the middle of it, in the midst of it. In fact, this book kind of helped me get through some of it.
Yeah.
And I guess that's stuff we need to talk about here. So what I'm going to do for our listeners is we're going to talk about the things that have happened in the last week here, as long as it takes. And I'll probably cut down an abridged version of it for the actual episode. And then maybe if it goes long, put an unabridged episode up on our Patreon on the free tier. You won't have to pay for it, but you will probably have to sign up and can listen to it there if you want to hear us make some most likely actionable threats.
In Minecraft.
In Minecraft.
Yeah, I like to think that what this might turn into is kind of a Twin Peaks, the missing pieces thing, where it's all the cutscenes from Fire Walk with Me, all just one after the other, kind of in sequence. And you watch it after watching Fire Walk with Me, and you go, oh yeah, I can. Okay, this adds to this, and I totally see why they cut that shit out.
Somebody was using Twin Peaks as his comfort watching for the last week. I can see
1,000%.
Yeah, it's weird to think of Twin Peaks as comforting, but I get it.
How was your guys' week? Do you
not great.
No.
Weirdly, it almost, like, I guess the familiarity of a repeat kind of blunts some of its more acute impact, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah,
but
yeah, that's true.
And there was just the slightest twinge, not enough to actually like spill out into real life, but all of the weeks of screaming, stop fucking reaching out to Republicans who will not vote for you.
Yeah,
there was some definite I told you so vibes.
It's going to really help if we get Dick Cheney to endorse. Yeah.
Hated war criminal, Dick Cheney.
Over the course of the week, my rage at the average Trump voter has gone down, and my rage at the Democratic Party has just gone through the roof, and it's just getting worse every day.
Yeah.
Knows no bounds.
Yeah, it's really incandescent.
Yes. And it like, I get it, but I also do not understand how everybody is yelling at the Trump voters or keeping scorn and disgust on Trump voters, which you should, by the way.
Yeah, they're bad people who make bad decisions, and
right. Many of them, especially, who are enthusiastic for the ascension of their, the leopard that will ultimately eat their faces.
Yeah.
But there is a complete lack of culpability towards the Democrats. It's like it's anger at the voters for not having enough fealty to the Democratic Party. Like, the whole fucking job of a politician is to get elected to do good things, in theory, right? I mean, in the real world.
Yeah.
Let's not be
silly here.
Right. But so that's the whole point of what they're supposed to be good at doing. It's you can't have Bernie as a candidate. Sorry to relitigate that, but the adults are in the room. We got to get somebody electable. Well, congratulations, you found the one person who could lose to Donald Trump twice. They found uniquely bad candidates, or found a uniquely bad way to present them. And if they truly believed that Donald Trump was an existential threat, which, he's not one.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put that.
Then why would you not use every weapon in your arsenal? But they would rather see Donald Trump than any kind of actual help for the people. There have already been some Democratic legislators talking about how they went too far trying to mollycoddle the left, and that's what lost in the election.
Yeah, I've seen that.
They did nothing, though.
No, they actively moved to the right.
They actively told the left to go fuck themselves, and the left was like, "Stop genociding people," and they told them to go eat a dick.
Yeah, I have not even touched on that aspect of the moral issue with voting. Like, I have seen enough photos of toddlers' hands reaching out from under rubble to last me 10 fucking lifetimes. And I swallowed down my bile and voted for Harris this time, not to vote for her, but to vote against Trump. But it's evil. Like, they are complicit in evil. Like, literally, you were talking about the lesser of evils. Like, they are evil. They are committing evil acts. I was
hoping this dystopia talk would be us like talking about cool ways in which we could fight them, but now they're irrelevant.
I do disagree with that. I think they want to keep the illusion of the boot on your neck being so total as to leave you no options, to leave
That's
you.
True. Yeah.
Like, feeling despair is a natural and justifiable, and if you don't feel it a little bit, there's something wrong with you emotion. But succumbing to despair is a different question. Like, the one thing that the alley of the controlled opposition of the Democrats, you are correct. Like, waiting for them to fix the situation is fruitless. But you can get together. Like, you can get together with people. Like, you can form community mutual aid groups. You can form community support groups. The Elm Forks John Brown Gun Club, the last time Trump was in office, they actually went out and stood in the way of police sweeps, busting down homeless encampments. And eventually the cops gave up because they are cowards. They are cowards in the face of strength.
Yeah.
And they have, they got helicopters, but we got hella people. It's like, there are thousands of them, but there are millions of us. They cannot keep us under control other than if we fail to take it back. So it is not the case that there is nothing we can do.
Well, that's not what I meant. I meant there's nothing the Democrats can do.
Oh, correct.
Because
they're feckless.
Feckless is the word I was about to say. Yes, they've got nothing. It is up to us. Yeah, I'm not. In fact, that segues into something I wanted to be sure to mention today is that I've actually been thinking about this show and our dystopia talk, which some people like. Obviously, some people hate. But I'm kind of tired of just talking about how bad things are and then like saying, "Oh shucks, let's talk about Universal Soldier."
Yeah.
So, I don't know if there's anything we can do in the future to offer some ideas or whatever to offer some help.
I will say this, for a lot of people, awareness of the situation in which we've been in for a long time is more acute than it ever has been. And some people are sometimes reaching out and questioning what they're going to do. What can they do? How are they going to survive? How are they going to cope? How are they going to fight back? There are a lot of groups of folks that have had to exist with the realities of our situation more acutely than some other folks have for a long time.
Than three like middle class-ish white dudes.
Exactly that. Exactly that. And so if you get involved in organizations where you are helping people, like if you volunteer for Food Not Bombs, like, and you help feed people and you get involved with people that have been organizing and being activists on the ground level outside of the official channels for a long time, like, a lot of those people have a lot of experience that will help you figure out the best avenue forward for you.
So I've actually got a question about that, and it's something I've kind of wondered about, struggled with for a while. How do you find these groups? Because obviously Food Not Bombs is one I've heard of, and I know you can kind of Google them and find, but a lot of these groups don't advertise themselves because that's not safe. And I don't know how to get in touch with these groups that I would like to aid.
Well, I will say this, and this is probably going to immediately turn a lot of people off, but it's a good avenue to go down. Like, if you have a local communist or socialist group in your area.
What? This is not that kind of show.
Yeah. Like, they might not necessarily, and in fact, a lot of the communist groups in the country are co-opted, right? Like they've been diverted down weird paths, but there will be people there. And if you show up and you are sincere and you are really trying to find a way to help, there are people that you will be able to connect with there. And they're probably going to think you're a cop.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
And that's the good mindset to have too. If you go to a group, if you get involved with a group and you try and you find someone that's approaching you and trying to get you involved immediately without knowing you at all in actions, very radical actions, that guy is a cop. Don't trust him. You're being set up.
It's also
like,
go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
best case scenario, that is a person who is probably unstable. More likely, it is a fucking cop.
Yeah.
So you need to avoid that.
And in those spaces, people like us kind of are minorities and need to be aware that we look like the enemy for a lot of all intents and purposes.
And it's also that's actually a great point. Like also when you are going out to join up with folks, do not make this about how you can save the country. Make this about how you can help a group. Because become part of a group and help that group affect good change. Because you can't do anything. I can't do anything, but we can do something.
All right. Fun. I think
fun fucking times.
I think we will, if we split this up, still don't know if that's going to happen. I'm guessing it probably will, but we will save recommendos till next week, if that sounds cool.
Yeah.
So we can dive into the book and see how far we get.
Actually, I have one more thing that's not dystopia talk, but it is dystopia adjacent.
Okay.
Going back to this Wednesday morning, the day after the election, I woke up and I saw a bunch of notifications on my phone. Many of them were not good. One of them was, the, for me, relatively unusual Instagram notification.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I see where you're going.
So I don't do a whole lot of messaging on Instagram. It's just a couple of people. And so I was like, oh, let's see what this is. And this is like literally, I've gotten up, I've taken a piss, and that's all so far. I'm 5 minutes into my day. Haven't opened an email. Well, then by the time I started looking at my phone, I had gotten outside and lit a cigarette. So,
trailing a stream of urine.
Yeah, exactly. So I click on this Instagram message, and it is from one of our classic Creek of the Week and continuing into high-tech low-life listeners, Suze. She was formerly Speed Muffin on Twitter. And she took, she did some real fucking art overnight or first thing in the morning for me to be presented with. She made her Instagram reel of
story, I think.
Or story, yeah. Of a black screen with happy birthday, ? ace.joshua.collins. And then the soundtrack to it was the opening track of the Dawson's Creek episode Downtown Crossing, which is this downbeat fucking thing. I think maybe, if possible, we could stick a sample in here, but anyway, this downbeat fucking tune that after the episode that dropped after the 2016 election, I edited it out of the TV episode and put it as the intro for our Creek of the Week show.
Because we were sad.
And historically, we had this blah, 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 like
our Creek of the Week dubstep intro. It's great.
Yeah, it's wonderful and high energy. But she went to the trouble of digging that shit up and saying happy birthday with it 8 years after the fact. It immediately brightened my fucking day. Just 100%.
Because it's been sad. We also used it for our final Creek of the Week episode.
Oh, you're right. I bet what she did is she probably had either that or the Run Like Sad episode.
Yeah.
And probably just, clipped out the first 30 seconds of it before we were talking.
Like I said,
But-
if I do, which we're an hour in, so I probably will put the all our commentary onto the Patreon free feed. I will probably use that as the intro just for old time's sake because I've got it.
Yeah, why not?
Hey everybody, I did in fact put our full unabridged conversation on the 2024 presidential election up on our Patreon. That's patreon.com/hightechlowlife. It is on the free tier, so you don't have to pay any money to listen to it. You do probably have to sign up for Patreon though, so that's that. Also, quick reminder, if you do join our Patreon or any Patreon from this point forward, don't do it through the iTunes app, because then the money that you're trying to help a creator out with is going to go to Apple, and Apple's got plenty of money. They don't need any more. So web browser, Android app is cool. No Apple, iTunes, iPods, whatever the kids are using these days. Thank you very much. Bye.
Are you sure you don't want to go for the MASH theme?
Ooh, that'd be good too. That might be. Jan Arden has proven to not be litigious. I don't know about Manic Street Preachers.
Fair.
They did that, right?
No.
Damn it.
I can't remember the guy's name. He was the son of one of the producers of the show.
Johnny Mandel.
Okay, yes.
Johnny Mandel and Michael Altman. Why did I think maybe they covered it or something?
That's very possible. But that show was long before Manic Street Preachers
You're
was
right.
a thing.
Must have been a
Oh,
cover.
it was no, it was Kasabian. Kasabian did.
Welsh alternative rock band Manic Street Preachers released a cover version on September 7, 1992. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, we got to the bottom of that. Let's take a quick break for us here, and I'm going to run a podcast promo right here. So we'll be back in 1 minute.
Okay, bye.
You ever wanted to play Shadowrun? You know, the cyberpunk tabletop game where man meets magic and machine. It's too hard though, right? Too crunchy? Too clunky? It's a lot of math. Wrong! Pink Fohawk is a Shadowrun 2nd Edition actual play podcast, played by the rules, but fast and loose, with all the 80s cyberpunk edginess you know and love, where the hair is big and the explosions are bigger. Follow the story of two rad Shadowrunners, making a name for themselves in the mean streets of 2053 Seattle. Tina Bonemeal, 9.5 feet of pure troll muscle, surveillance expert, and aspiring actress. John Anderson, former company man, with a resume shrouded in mystery and a black belt in Aikido. Check out Pink Fohawk Podcast, available everywhere you listen to podcasts.
All right, we are back. Hope you enjoyed that podcast promo. We are finally going to talk about a book that maybe we should have been talking about our whole lives.
Yes, it is the 2016 Metallica album, Hardwired to Self-Destruct. I don't know why this was recommended to us. Even listening through it, it doesn't seem
Josh,
very
wait a
cyberpunk.
minute.
What?
Once again, you've covered the wrong material.
Josh, you fool. It's Hardwired, the 8th full-length studio album by Frontline Assembly from 1995.
Frontline Assembly. There is an act I have not thought of for 25 years easily.
I think it's possible that the title might have done this book a little dirty too. I don't know. Maybe the whole marketing behind it was what caused it to miss us who were primed to accept it.
Yeah, I really do not know how this is just such a blind spot for me.
Because we've talked about Cyber City 080, 808 and how if we'd seen that in our pivotal moments, it would have become a part of our developing minds. But, it's from Japan.
Yeah, that's more explicable.
Yeah,
right.
It makes sense that we didn't end up seeing that. This, it does not. Like, we should have all at least heard of it, if not read it.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the B. Dalton sci-fi section 3 days a week.
Yeah. I You people wouldn't believe how many instances in my life was I shoplifting from from corporate bookstores back then. I don't know how this didn't accidentally fall into my pocket at some point.
Well, it's called Hardwired. It's by Walter John Williams. I don't have that up. I'm hoping I remember it right.
That is correct. Came out in 1986. You know, just so if you're keeping track, that's 30 years before Hardwired to Self-Destruct.
And I am keeping track.
Yeah.
I have to confess, guys, I didn't actually read the book, but I did watch the movie adaptation with Cuba Gooding Jr. and Val Kilmer.
Oh.
It's not.
Okay.
That's not. There is a Hardwired movie. It's not.
Is there?
This.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe that was absolutely believable that would have slipped under our radar too.
Like I could totally see if that came out in, let's see, Cuba Gooding Jr. and Val Kilmer.
2009.
Okay, I was going to guess 2006, but yeah, I could easily see that slipping through the net.
Which one?
Anyway,
at least Sarah.
That movie is very has all the trappings of cyberpunk, but is not good.
Oh.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry.
They're out there. This is a really good fucking book. I think it is. It's not just really good, but it seems to me to be foundational to the genre in ways that are secondary only to, William Gibson.
Surprisingly, and to be clear, we've been recommended this by a lot of our listeners. Like, I didn't specifically mention it because we've probably had a half a dozen people recommend this book. So obviously it didn't slip under everybody's radar, but it definitely did ours. And I was amazed at how obviously influential it was. Like, straight down to, I did some, maybe I'm jumping ahead of the gun, but like, there is a piece of cyberware called a Sendivistan, which is like the main thing in the Cyberpunk 2077 video game, which of course comes from the Cyberpunk 2020 tabletop game.
Yeah. Which the Walter John Williams wrote a Hardwired supplement for.
Yeah. CP 2020.
Yeah. And, what's the guy's name? Our Teslorian Games guy. The guy who wrote Cyberpunk.
Pond Smith. Mike Pond Smith.
That's right. Yeah. Interesting guy. Good. He's well worth a read of some of his writings about games. He cites this as a foundational influence.
Yeah, apparently Walter John Williams was an early playtester on Cyberpunk, whatever the first edition was. Mm-hmm. It is like, we're going to keep coming back to it. It is truly wild that none of us had read this before.
Yeah. You can't talk about ripped off cyberpunk tropes without mentioning Shadowrun, which I feel a good third of the game was taken from this book. It feels like at times.
Yeah, it really, like...
there's no magic, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, no magic and elves, but I always wondered where the rigger stuff came from. Well, now I know.
Yeah.
I know where
where
the hovercrafts and the panzers and all that stuff, that's all taken directly from this book. Now, nobody ever accused Shadowrun of being original with its thoughts, so...
I do. I have a very firm memory of, 30 years ago, me lending you Neuromancer. I think it was the first time you attempted to read it, and I don't think you made it all the way through. But I do remember you saying to me at one point, they even stole the name of the money.
Yeah.
Like, yep.
Yeah. Nothing is original.
No. Yeah. Anyway, this book is fucking great. So we are in a nebulous future. Unclear how far into the future it is. Doesn't matter. But there are giant corporations who are now largely based in, they're usually called orbitals. It seems like we have somewhat colonized a majority of the solar system, at least.
Or the Lagrangian points, at least.
Yeah. Well, they talk about extracting resources and stuff from Jupiter, and so we got people out there. and that is where all the big corporations are.
The vagueness makes it more interesting, by the way.
Yeah, because again, it's one of those nice things that you can get in fiction, where you like nobody spends a bunch of time running down the history of the fucking world for you because you were there for it. You just accept.
Yeah,
So, then, like I think it was 12 years before the book, there was a big war where the Orbital corporations decided that the Earth's governments are getting a bit too big for their britches. We are the drivers of the economy now. So they had what's called the Rock War, where the Orbitals just dropped rocks on Earth.
Yeah.
Cool idea.
It's a really good way to do war. I mean, if you're in orbit, about the easiest thing to do is take those things you don't want in orbit and throw them at the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of what's going to be many things that feel like we're influenced by this is The Creator, which we recently saw, and its giant floating spaceships. Just the horror of knowing at any point they could throw a small island on you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. It's like the kinetic energy from gravitational potential energy equivalent of the Hiroshima bomb is in geosynchronous orbit. It's like it's a rod that's like 10 or 20 kilograms. It's tiny.
It's a couple of kilograms. It's nothing.
Yeah,
and that's if you don't bother to accelerate it on the way down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because the Earth lost the war, at least the United States, and it seems like probably a good portion of the rest of the world, but we don't get a good picture of the world. The United States has balkanized into mostly states or approximations of states, like our currently existing states, which is very fun because in the first chapter, the main character runs through fucking central and eastern Kansas, like places that Eric and I have been a million times.
Yeah, where we grew up.
Yeah. But United States is balkanized. The Orbitals are fucking hyper-capitalist dicks. And there is big business in smuggling stuff to the northeast of the United States from the Intermountain West. And there's some parts of it that don't quite come together, at least in my mind, in terms of why all of these routes are from the west to the northeast as opposed to the south or whatever, but it doesn't tremendously matter.
Yeah, they specifically say that they go one direction mainly.
Yeah.
It's because the West made a deal with orbitals to land, like to bring stuff down.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
And that's the same thing that Florida did.
Yeah.
So,
but they also talk about in the towards the end, I think, if I remember right, like artificial scarcity is the name of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
It turns out this whole smuggling thing is an act or, a fucking juke by the orbital corporations to keep things supplied a little bit and control the black market, because there's always going to be a black market for everything.
It's actually really smart. Like, the best way to keep your light market, whatever it's called, you manage the competition, controlled opposition. Let's call it.
Mm-hmm.
I just made that up.
Yeah,
that's a useful term. I'll remember that.
Think about it. Maybe it has other uses. I don't know.
We create a vacuum, then we fill that vacuum.
Yes. It's popular word advances pieces closer. 2 episodes in a row with Use Your Illusions 2 references.
Yep. So we meet our main characters. We've got 2 of them. The first one is a guy named Cowboy because he is cool.
This book is equal parts like really well thought out stuff and like 80s cheese, and it's so fucking wonderful for that.
It works amazingly. Yeah. It's like it just comes right up to the edge of cringe.
Yeah.
But it skates that edge perfectly.
It feels earned, you know?
Yeah, it does.
It does. Plus, it was 86. Like, some of the tropes weren't as well established, and obviously it helped establish some of them itself. So,
yeah.
But Cowboy, Cowboy's a funny name for your protagonist.
It really is.
They should have called him Hero Protagonist. That would have been more original.
Honestly, that is probably exactly what Neil Stephenson was thinking of.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Okay, so he is a rigger from New Mexico. He hates Texans.
If you're not familiar with the term, a rigger is somebody who can directly interface with their vehicle and basically control their vehicle like an extension of their body.
Yes. He was formerly a fighter pilot. And then the fighter or, the airplane business kind of went downhill because the orbitals developed too great a control over the airspace. Mm-hmm. Which that's another one of the things that I kind of bumped against, because that's the entire structure of this guy's life. He drives this Panzer, which is an armed and armored fucking hovercraft, which in your mind looks incredibly cool, ripping across the plains. Because the orbitals control the airspace too well. And then at the end of the book, it seems like maybe they forgot about that.
Yeah, it does. I noticed that. Yeah.
Like the last third of the book, we're just flying around all the time. No big deal.
Well, I mean, we'll probably get there, but they don't they had to build those planes themselves. Like it might not have been, it might be far enough along that, and it's been controlled for so long that they just didn't have the means to get up there anymore.
Yeah.
Because they were all under corporate control. Because they make a big deal of saying how all those planes were DIY built in barns and stuff across the West, which is cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
So this guy smuggles medicine mostly. There are other things. There's what are they called in the book? Hearts, which are, I don't know, effectively processors.
I think so.
But it seems to mostly be medicines and things like that.
Endorphins.
Smuggled.
Endorphins.
Yeah. Medicines, drugs, etc. And he does this, this is the first 2 chapters of him. He does this crazy fucking, what becomes a legendary run through, what amounts to Sam Alley, if you remember that from the first Gulf War. Nobody goes through Missouri because it's too dangerous, because there are simply too many, what do they call them in the book? They're effectively contractors for the state, bounty hunters who try to control smuggling, because, like I said, all the states are balkanized, so they all have different tariffs and stuff like that. So he rips through fucking Missouri, blowing up airplanes and shit.
A dream both Josh and I have had so many times in our lives.
1,000 times, yeah. The last time I had it was, in fact, mere 2 months ago, going to Astronomicon.
Yeah. If I had a Panzer, Missouri would be fucked.
Yeah.
Two good Kansas boys.
Head south to Springfield, just laying waste, then hit the current all the way down to the Mississippi. It'd be great.
One thing,
your Maserati Panzer, and
oh God, you did mention it earlier, Josh, and I kind of stepped on you, but yeah, he hates Texans, and that made me laugh. In fact, I think I texted you right out of the gate. This book's starting off strong with he's just talking shit on Texans.
It's 5 pages in, if that.
In fact, he uses Texan as an epithet.
Another thing I wanted to point out about Cowboy, which I think is established fairly early on, is he's definitely an idealist and a romantic. In a way that I don't feel like a lot of male protagonists like this necessarily were back in the day. Like, he resents his coolest shit Panzer because it's not an airplane. He wants to be in the sky, but he's got to fly he's got to drive this stupid Panzer, even though it's probably the coolest vehicle I've ever seen described on paper.
Yeah.
And by the same thing, he also hates that his job has become less getting medicine to people who need it, and more like just smuggling drugs for people to alter their realities. And it right off the bat, it makes Cowboy a protagonist you want to root for.
Yeah, he's very likable.
Which is a little different from our other protagonist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I actually like Sarah as a character. I mean,
Oh yeah, absolutely. She's not as idealistic. She's very much a pragmatist.
Oh yeah, she is 100%. In fact, way later on, the conversation when they're in Rune's compound, where she's like, "Yeah, it's awful, but my brother would trade places with either of those kids in a heartbeat, and I would have too at one point."
Yeah, she's an important balance in this world that seems to eat up idealists and spit them out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Sarah, our second protagonist, is effectively a street samurai. She has a weasel, which is initially confusing.
It took me a while to figure it out. Yeah.
And
one part awesome, 2 parts terrifying.
Yeah.
Yes. Apparently, I read a little chunk of an interview with Walter John Williams. Apparently, her striking at Korolev, or the guy at the beginning of the book with the weasel, was a nightmare that Walter John Williams had when he started. Like, he was like, "Holy shit, that's horrible." Making out with a woman, and then like some sort of weird mechanical snake shoots out of her fucking throat and starts attacking you.
Yeah.
I guess there's a story there. Type.
I was kind of imagining like the Alien second thing, only metal.
What is it? Pharyngeal jaw.
Yeah.
Yes. Ugh.
Fucking horrifying and awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, she's a street samurai with she's a mid-level street sam. She doesn't have, she might have wired one. She's got skill wires, but they're not great. She has to activate them with a drug. Like, I'm talking about this in Shadowrun terms.
Well, and speaking of comparing it to other terms, she's very much a Molly Millions character. But what she reminded me a lot more than Molly, she reminded me of Jane from Johnny Mnemonic, actually, who always seemed a little more not as confident as Molly was in Neuromancer.
Yeah, Molly is at no point ever out of her depth,
right?
Or at least, even if she is,
she's not admitting it to anyone or herself.
It doesn't crack the surface,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
And Sarah gets in out of her depth a couple of times in here, understandably.
In fact, she that's part of her development. She wears it. She's got scars on her face, and she leaves them there when she lives in a world where they could easily be removed because they remind her of past mistakes, and she wants to, learn and remember her mistakes.
Yeah.
I really like Sarah. She's fantastic.
She's really good. So she gets hired to do this job where she trains for months, something like that, to seduce an agent of the orbitals to get in so that they can have access to, well, she's hired by one orbital, a guy named Cunningham, to seduce an agent of a different corporation so that they can get into their computers and do something. It's not entirely clear. Later it becomes clear that it was just to kind of dick with some of their internal software. It's not doing a big heist or anything. It's throw a little extra code in there, extract some code that's not immediately worth monetary value.
Yeah.
So she seduces this agent and kills him or her.
There's some gender swappy things going on, which are a little uncomfortable given the current climate, but
it's not handled with what a modern eye would call sensitivity at all points, but I don't know, it's kind of like you can tell Walter John Williams' heart is in the right place.
Yeah,
writing about
for fucking 1986. Yeah, we're on the side of right.
From what I got, like, this is fully an intro story to introduce the character of Sarah to you. I don't feel like there was no commentary on transgenderism being made. He was just like saying, look how easy it is in this world to just swap your body if you want to. And I feel like that was the whole point of the character.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another person might have a different read, so don't want to ignore that.
Well, I think if you look kind of beneath the surface, it's about this old powerful corporate executive literally stealing the body of a young woman. Yeah. He wears her body. So
yeah. And that becomes pretty important later in the book, the kind of body swapping. It's not quite body swapping. It's you get your mind yanked out and stuck in a computer chip, and then they build a body, carve out the brain, and stick the computer in it.
Yeah, it's very close to Altered Carbon, idea. Yeah. And I don't know which came first. When was Altered Carbon books written?
This precedes 90s. Altered Carbon. Yeah. Okay.
So maybe there was some inspiration there too.
Yeah.
But it's very much like that, only it's not like a main plot. It's just one of the things these super rich assholes can do.
Yeah.
And man, the super rich assholes really, once again, taking a cue from Gibson, they're being portrayed like aliens, basically.
We only really get to interact with one in the book, and
other than this guy in the
boy.
He's
a bad man.
Yeah, they very much in the Gibson model of they are not us.
Yeah.
He's
not like
us. Or in the Kendrick Lamar model of they not like us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Very much in that model, by the way, like one for one in what Kendrick Lamar was saying.
Yeah, that's true. So Drake, Rune. Shit, where was that? Okay.
The assassination's complete.
Yeah. She kills him / her. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and that scene is a fucking nightmare.
It's
really effective.
Yeah, it really is. And like, I read that interview that I mentioned after I had read that scene. And I was like, oh yeah, I totally see that. That's like, yeah, this is something the author dreamed, could not get out of his head, and just had to throw it down exactly the same way that the story is that after he got fired from Piranha 2, James Cameron had fucking food sickness or the flu or something like that, food poisoning in Italy before he could get home, and he had like no money, just enough for a fucking flight, and he was like locked in this tiny hostel room, sick as a dog, and he was just having this horrible dream of a metal skeleton rising out of flames and stalking after him. And it's the same way. It's like, oh yeah, I totally see how this is a whole thing for the author. This is an indelible image for them, and they threw it at us.
From that dream, we get Christian Bale's Terminator Genesis, or whichever one he was in.
Oh, good for you.
We get that meme. It's like the little meme of the pushing the one tiny domino, and it goes up the bigger and bigger dominoes, and the last one is the "oh, good for you" meme.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very visceral bit of combat.
Literally, you follow the perspective of the weasel, like threading through through guts.
Yeah,
following veins back to the heart.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
She doesn't seem to enjoy it very much either.
No, like after it's over, like she can't breathe while the weasel is like distended. It like closes off her trachea.
Yeah.
And she's like fighting oxygen deprivation to like frantically rinse it off in the sink because she doesn't want to like
get all that blood
and flesh.
Oh God.
It's like, it's horrible for her too.
I was making dinner while I listened to that on my audiobook.
Nice. Yeah. Nice bolognese.
Liver. liver with some fava beans and a nice
Chianti. Ooh, good.
Oh yeah, sorry, I pronounced it wrong. Chianti.
Yeah.
Chianti.
It's very visceral, and this is one of the things where you realize partway through, like you can, or at least I can very easily read this book and like I'm going, oh yeah, this is like some Gibson stuff. This is Gibsonian in the same way something might be Lynchian. But you reach that scene and you go, oh, William Gibson would never write this. Like, there's not a world in which...
Yeah. Similar to the Panzer battle, the opening Panzer battle in Missouri. That didn't feel very Gibson either. Like, Walter John Williams writes some fucking action scenes, and that's something we haven't really seen in a lot of our books that we've covered.
Yeah.
And they're good. Like, he writes them well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really does.
It's honestly one of the things I came away from this book thinking was that, okay, regardless of anything else, how the fuck has this never been a movie?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it is like it's not struggling even slightly with like arguably one of the problems with Gibson's work is that he gets a little into the weeds on kind of the philosophy and implications of stuff. This book, there's some of that, but fuck, it would be so easy to just turn this into bang, shit explodes.
Yeah.
And it would look really cool. I don't know how somebody hasn't done that.
I don't know. I would love to see it.
Yeah,
I guess
the only thing I can think is like maybe there's like some kind of like weird, somebody's estate owns the movie rights or something like that. And
God knows.
Walter John Williams is still alive, right?
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I forget who it was, but there was another really good property that was bogged down. Yeah, well, I'm trying to racking my. Anyway, well, somebody bought the movie rights to a book from the author. And then died, and their estate owns the movie rights, but it's still like in dispute, and the author's has been trying to get it back for like 20 years.
I know that. I know that story, or at least I know a story like that. I can't think of what the fuck it is.
Well, it would be a very good movie. My only problem is that it's so cyberpunk. Like this book is cyberpunk as fuck. That some of the stuff they don't necessarily explain, a normie might not get.
Yeah.
Like some of the AI stuff, like Ghost in the Machine stuff, and I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I think they could find a way around that.
Honestly, that's easier to fucking follow than like say the Gibson AI stuff.
True. True. Like the voodoo gods and stuff. You're right.
Yeah, I mean those are very effectively magic.
Yeah.
They were just self-generating, and in this, it's a guy had huge chunks of his body blown up, and we mentioned we can transfer brains into computers, and this guy's brain is in a computer, and he's angry. I mean, it's very literally Ghost in the Machine shit.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like,
or Dixie Flatline.
I was thinking of Dixie. This is
Dixie.
Heavily influenced by William Gibson. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah. I think I would assume that Walter John Williams would agree with that.
Yeah.
No, he wouldn't dispute that for a hot second.
I hope not.
It'd be crazy if he did.
So we did the run with Cowboy. We did the kind of first hit with Sarah, and it's for the first half of the book. It's alternating chapters, and the chapters are kind of long. And later, like about halfway through, it starts intercutting within the chapters, viewpoint to viewpoint, but those are our two viewpoint characters. And we see through those interactions sort of both or a couple of different ends of how the Earth underground works. And by underground, I don't mean freedom fighters at this point. It's black markets, drug dealers, etc.
Yeah. What does Cowboy call them? Human lice?
Yes. Yeah. Effectively, both Cowboy and Sarah are independent contractors. They get hired by general contractors to, either drive a hover tank across the country full of drugs or lay some tile, whatever.
Yeah.
And we get into that a little bit. And we find out, or I guess Cowboy, as he's doing his run, and once he kind of finishes it up, Cowboy realizes that the math for this doesn't work. How are these beautiful, pure antibiotics and whatever, all this bullshit he's been smuggling for 10 years or whatever, where is that coming from? It's not coming from, as far as he can tell, there's not factories in California. And this is something that might be slightly lost on people who don't have a tremendous amount of depth on science fiction. One of the long-standing things in both science fiction and why people in the real world want to get up into space is the idea that certain manufacturing processes will be much easier in micro or zero gravity, and certain processes might be possible there that aren't possible on the Earth.
Yeah.
There's some
Jeff Bezos shit.
Yeah.
There's some molecules that you can form that are difficult to form in gravity that would form better in zero G.
Yeah. Whether or not this will actually ever become anything vaguely useful, anybody's guess. But that's what this book is predicated on. The orbital corporations became insanely powerful because they harnessed the ability to manufacture shit in microgravity. So Cowboy realizes that, like we were talking earlier, that the black market is entirely a creation of the orbital corporations, and that he is just being their fucking cat's paw.
Yeah, he's not doing good running medicine to people who need it. He's just aiding and abetting the bad system that's keeping people from getting medicine.
Yeah. And although he doesn't spend any time really thinking about it, both he and other Panzer boys are dying for nothing, effectively. And at the same time, all the bounty hunter. God, what does he call them in the book? The plane pilots and helicopter pilots and shit that hunt the Panzer boys. There's some specific name for them.
I can't remember offhand.
Yeah.
Was it Raptors? No, that was
no. Anyway, those guys are also dying for no reason, just as cat's paws to keep this, fake black market up and running and keep our stock prices at blah, blah, blah.
Very, 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 very relatable.
Yeah. They're all tools of the corporations, and corporations are bad. Let's just lay that out.
Disagree.
Putting on a show to prop up their artificial control of the economy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
go ahead. No, you.
No, you.
No, I think you're about to say what I'm going to say.
Am I? I forgot what I was going to say.
Fuck. Basically, what it boils down to, I'm jumping ahead here. That's why I was going to let you do it.
Great.
Is that Cowboy? The opening problem is Cowboy wants to start a union. Is that?
Yeah. It is.
He wants to unionize.
Yeah, the inciting incident is, I don't think our bosses are treating us right. Why don't we all team up?
And in fact, it's explicitly said when he's telling this to one of the Panzer girls, and she goes, "You want to start a union?" And he says, "Not a union, more of a co-op or something like that." Exactly
more of a collective bargaining unit.
Yeah. It's like, wow, I appreciated it.
Yeah.
I liked it. It's like that bit in The Last of Us when they meet up with his brother in the town that's like regenerating itself, and she's like,
oh yeah.
She's like, oh yeah, we all work together to provide for the needs of everyone, and everyone does everything they can, and there's no more scarcity or want. And, and then the girl says, oh, so you're communists. And the brother goes, no, it's not like that. It's not like that.
Yeah.
And the lady from the town looks at him, turns to him, and she goes, yeah, it is. This is a commune. We're communists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Poor sweet cowboy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. He's an interesting character in that he is very much not like, I cannot help but read this book in contrast with Gibson's books.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's
like,
it's hard to separate the two.
Yeah.
Or not to just want to compare them.
He is so not a Gibson protagonist, at least for the Sprawl trilogy, at all. Like,
yeah, he's not he's never paralyzed by anomie at any point.
He spends the whole thing knowing what he's doing. He's really good at what he's doing.
He's a legend among his people. Yeah, the only reason people listen to him is because he's cowboy.
Yeah, as opposed to, say, I don't know, Case, where it's easy to lose sight of the fact that Case is like, if you read the description pretty close, Case was never a big famous hacker. He's one of a bunch of dudes who did what he did. He just happened to get caught and has the right psych profile to be hired for the book.
Yeah.
He's not an absolute legendary fucking hacker.
Right.
Turner, he kind of compares to better.
Better, but Turner believes in nothing.
Yeah, true. He doesn't have any ideals. He's just he kind of gains some as the character goes through his arc, but not like never to the extent that Cowboy has them. Yeah, he's not Gibsonian at all. Which
no, he's a romantic character in like the classic sense,
which is kind of nice to see in a cyberpunk story. You don't see it very often.
No.
Yeah, I like it, and I love too. Like he's very human. Like he's not. He's over the top because he's fucking screaming across the countryside in his Maserati Panzer. But he's very well written as a human being, like as a realized character in that position. He's in love with his own. He's very aware of and in love with his own legend and cultivates it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think that's
true. Which you would be like if you were Zero Cool, you would be telling everyone who was a hacker the second you met them, "Oh, hey, I'm Zero Cool."
Yeah. Yeah, 29,037 computer systems in one day. Yeah, that was me.
I always I kept coming back to that too because like a lot of Gibson books, a lot of the cyberpunk stuff we've covered, there's always some dirtball and then some. This is kind of true in Johnny Mnemonic as well. Some hyper competent woman helping him, and this one they're both kind of hyper competent, but they kind of fill in the gaps of what the other's missing.
Yeah,
which makes them a good team.
And I think one of the things, a thing about Sarah in this book, where she's could be very easily a clone of Molly Millions. I don't think the character actually ends up being that close to Molly Millions because Molly's got her shit together better.
Yeah.
But she's very much like, she is somebody whose ideal character is Molly Millions. Like, she wants to be Molly Millions. Except for the fact that she knows she can't be. So her goal is to, if I can just scrape enough money, I can get out of the fucking game.
Right.
As opposed to Molly, who we find, in Mona Lisa Overdrive, we find out she would, spend a while owning a casino in like Switzerland and doing cage fights in the casino she owned because she can't get that far out of the game.
And Molly lives for the game.
Yeah.
And Sarah just like her overwhelming arc because she just wants to fucking leave.
Yeah, and she also has the absolute fucking dead weight of goddamn brother dragging her down every step of the way.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned Daoud yet. However you guys pronounce it when you read it.
Yeah, that's how I would say it.
Yeah.
Poor bastard Daoud.
Yeah.
Literal dead weight hunk of just a hunk of flesh, basically.
Yeah. Her brother is a sex worker, which she was. And I think that's actually something I want to talk about that we haven't talked about on the show before, literally, or, in any depth. One of the things that I think is pretty characteristic of a lot of cyberpunk is the prevalence of sex work in the backstory of main characters.
That is interesting.
We get flashbacks or Molly telling stories about how she was a working girl to when she was saving up for her fucking wire reflexes and all her mods and shit like that. Sarah was a sex worker. She's explicitly used to be a working girl. Daoud is a sex worker. There are a ton of sex workers in the Marie Daudron series.
Oh yeah,
that we read. That we did the first book with When Gravity Fails. That's the title of it.
Yeah,
with Mike. I mean, this is a real running theme, and I think it's one of the most important things in these books that, for some reason, at least my mind just applies. Oh yeah, so you throw a tragic backstory at a character. The easiest way to do that and I'm not actually saying this. This is kind of how society makes it work. So she was a sex worker and she got out of it.
Yeah.
That's kind of the easiest way to have mysterious, tragic backstory. But really what we need to be thinking about in the context of these books is that very much literalizes these characters, whether or not the authors intended it. I think some of them certainly did. Some of them do not. These characters are literally selling their fucking bodies to get, in Molly or Sarah's terms, the technology to become competitive and compete in the hyper-capitalist hellscape they live in. I mean, they are literally selling themselves.
It's like literal chunks of their bodies. Yeah.
Yeah, it's and I don't know, it's something that we haven't addressed specifically, but it's something that I think we need to. One of the big things in cyberpunk, at least from my perspective, philosophically, is that cyberpunk is looking at how technology modulates the interface between humans, both in their individual sense and society as a whole, and all the systems we exist in. And on the one hand, it's very easy to go, yeah, I'd fucking love cyber arms. My shoulders are shit, and I'd love to be able to tear a car in half. That'd be cool, right?
Yeah.
I mean, or have a fucking gun in my right arm, whatever. On the other hand, the reason that characters in these stories and TV shows get the cyberware is not because their shoulders hurt. And they get it because, well, I mean, if you're going to make it as a mercenary in this hyper-capitalist hellscape, you need to have as much of an advantage as possible. Yeah, you have to sell pieces of your body and your soul, or essence, if you will, to get ahead.
That's true.
Okay.
I think it's also it's a kind of easy shorthand, if you will, to position in most societies, and especially most Western societies, sex workers are always liminal Like they are
Yes.
always
Yeah.
at the periphery of culture, and it's sort of an easy way to position someone there. And
Also,
I think it's also because like a man can just be a loner rebel.
Yeah.
Like, but like back in the 80s, like you had to have a reason, right? For why would a woman be a loner rebel? They're not, equal people. Like they've got to have a shadowy past that positions them there. I mean, I don't really think that's his thinking on this.
No.
Well, that leads me to what I wanted to say is that most of these stories are written by men. So I would be actually, I mean, we've talked about it many times, so we need to cover more stories that were created by women. And
oh yeah, Pat Cadigan's output.
Yes, and Sinners.
Yes, Sinners with a Y.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we need to cover more of that stuff, and just for, I mean, if nothing else, for the alternative viewpoint and to shed some light on these questions, because it's easy for a man to write a woman with a past in sex work and have it mean something to him. It might mean something different to a female author.
Well, or have it mean absolutely nothing to him beyond, hey, we need to give her a pass. I don't know. She's tough. She's sexy.
Yeah. Let's make it something hot.
Yeah, exactly. And this is 1000% not what William Gibson and I think Walter John Williams are doing.
I don't think so.
No,
either.
but I think that's the attitude that's in larger.
Yeah, that's the easier way. I think there are 9 billion movies and TV shows where it was very literally that. What's something hot? She was a hua.
Yeah.
I do think it's handled with a little more grace in this book. And because it's her and her brother, like it was just showed as their only option.
Yeah, that's how you get by.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she and her brother live in the Florida Free Zone, which is owned, ? By the Orbitals. There is apparently no law at all, just like Deadwood.
Just like much of Florida.
Yeah. And they have cool lotteries every day about how many bodies there are going to be overnight.
Those fucking things.
That's one thing I meant to mention as I love the device.
The little interstitials.
Yeah. The things that break up chapters often are news tickers or ads, and they're a great little bit of world building.
Yeah, I enjoyed him a lot.
Well, God, the Body Works.
It's Modern Body, because my audiobook, I listen to it on 1.5 speed, so every once in a while just be Modern Body.
Oh, and apparently that crossed over when he sold the rights to this in German. The German.
Oh, I saw that. Yes, that is yeah.
It's really funny. The German publisher, apparently the way that the rights licensing works in Germany, they just put ads for Maggi soup into the main characters,
which you might recognize from Aldi.
Yeah. So he's on the phone with his friend and he's like, all right, I'll get the San Steviston to you. But first, I'm going to enjoy a delicious bowl of Maggi chicken noodle soup.
Yeah, it's very funny. It also I read that I think this morning, and it took me back to something I have not thought of in a million years. How in the very cheap pocketbooks that you can get usually with the red on the outside of the pages. And you'd usually find them in used bookstores. There would sometimes be just in the middle of the fucking book, just a couple of pages of print ads for coming next season from Baen Books.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or, and I have not thought of those or seen anything like that for 30 years.
Yeah, ads and books. They used to be a thing.
That's really good. Oh, I wanted to, so along the topic of, narratives from a female author, with a perspective on this. There is a short story collection called Her Smoke Rose Up Forever by James Tiptree Jr.
Okay.
It came out in the late 70s, I think, or early 80s. But James Tiptree Jr. was actually the pseudonym of Alice Bradley. And a whole bunch of the stories in that book, which are all science fiction. Arguably, you could say some of them are cyberpunk. Most of them are just straight up sci-fi. but they really explore the question of gender, and it's a really interesting like they're all good stories on their own, but it's especially interesting from that vantage point.
Okay, yeah,
I have up forever.
I have not read that. I was aware that was a pseudonym for Alice Bradley, but
we've definitely been meaning to do some more representation on this show, and maybe even like dedicate a couple months to just getting away from white guys, because there's a lot of it out there, and it needs more coverage.
Okay, so we've set up. We did the first run for Cowboy, and then we also covered Sarah's big hit, and then after her hit, Cunningham, the officer of the corporation that hired her, goes ahead and tries to kill her because
Cunningham is an interesting character, because I don't think he tried to kill her necessarily, did, because he tried to almost warn her.
Vaguely.
You could tell Cunningham was a bridge between these orbital, at least from Sarah's point of view, he was a bridge between the dirt people, the people of Earth, and these orbital weirdos.
Dirt boys and dirt girls.
Dirt boys and dirt girls, yeah. Because he felt sympathy for Sarah. You could see that clearly.
And she says to him at some point, like, I know you came from down here and got your ticket punched and got up.
Well, in the end, I mean, not to get too far ahead, but he's an example to Sarah of like, this is the best you can hope for, which isn't very good. Yep. So yeah, Cunningham's an important character that's not really in the book much. He's
weirdly not fleshed out, but he hangs over a huge portion of the book.
Yeah, at least Sarah's story.
And it would be really interesting. Like, I would have loved a short story from his perspective.
Yeah.
Or, God forbid, a third viewpoint, and he's the third viewpoint trying to trying to balance, like, okay, what do these orbital lunatics fucking want?
Oh man, a third viewpoint from him would be really interesting, especially how he ends, because you don't even get to, that happens off screen.
Yeah.
A third man viewpoint, would you say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd really like to, I just on a tangent of that, I'd really like to see Arcadie's story too.
Yeah.
That's the fixer basically that hires Cowboy, right?
Yeah, he's the guy that sets Cowboy up.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Russian.
Nice off screen too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of.
So after Sarah's big hit, they try to hit her with a fucking rock. Like, it's
not subtle.
No, it's not subtle. Somebody just fires a rocket into her fucking apartment. Fortunately, she has left at that point, and unfortunately, Daoud is at their apartment and gets wiped out pretty fucking solidly.
Yeah, Daoud had already kind of been established as kind of a sad character with a drug habit who wasn't thrilled with Sarah. He's kind of a needy brother.
He steals from her. Half of her scars, she says, were his by right from her father.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is by nature and kind of understandably a user of people and drugs, but he's figured out
everybody's a user of drugs in this book.
Yeah. He's figured out the only way to survive is to put other people in the line of fire.
Right.
And to betray them. Again.
First and foremost, his sister. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, we're running into, hey, capitalism makes you betray everything you might love.
Yeah. I mean, he's representative of like just the normal person in this horrible scenario.
Yeah, and we learn over the course of a couple of chapters, just little bits and pieces, that not only is he a sex worker, he's also, once he ends up in the hospital, they aren't dosing him with the hormone blockers that he needs to stay young, looking, and like he complains a huge amount about the fact that he's getting stubble.
Yeah. He's staying super fit, artificially young because that's what his clients.
That's what the clients want. Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah, it's cool. He's got a pimp too. It's great. He's a cool guy. A pimp / boyfriend.
As is so often the case.
Yeah.
That was a sad character.
Yeah, he really is. He's a tragic character.
Yeah.
He's pitiful, like literally. I mean, he's kind of like he's a user and a betrayer, but also you just an object of pity.
You have a hard time blaming him. His existence is misery, and Sarah eventually, she explains that to Cowboy in pretty good terms.
Yeah. Anyway, Cowboy's on the East Coast. After this big, fancy, amazing fucking run. And Sarah gets hired by her hetman.
Which is like a fixer in this?
Effectively a fixer. To go with him and like basically make this delivery of these hearts, these circuitry hearts, which are effectively computer chips or something. And so she goes on a run with him. I can't remember. They go from Florida to North Carolina. Is that right? Something like that.
Where did they leave the Panzer? Can't remember.
Going to Pennsylvania
at some point.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania, maybe. Anyway, I guess it doesn't matter. But real quick, I liked the introduction of the two characters because you get to see them from each other's point of view, which was a fun moment in the book.
I really like the Cowboy's like, he's the legend in his own mind or whatever. And then the first time he meets her, she's like, oh, great, a junkie.
Yeah, not only has she never heard of him, in the, Southeast at least, having a bunch of sockets on the side of your head indicates that you're a fucking Beetle user.
Yeah, that you use electronics as drugs and are basically an unreliable drug addict. But he uses the same sockets for his job, so she doesn't know how good he is.
He says that at some point, like, oh, that means these mean something very different in the West.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like the whole.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, it's just like the whole first like section of the ride. Like she's like, what's he gonna do? Just like stream pornography directly into his brain while he's driving?
Yeah, he's jacking off and riding.
She's all worried about him being a pervert, and she doesn't want to wear the headset to listen in because she's afraid she'll be made a part of it somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually that part is very funny.
And to him, she's just a dirt girl.
Yeah, just some fucking thug broad.
Yeah.
So they end up getting ambushed, and it is unclear at the moment. Like, wait, is this further fallout from the hit or the attempted hit on her from earlier? Because one of the people who is at the ambush was also one of Cunningham's bodyguards.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or is this somehow related to something else entirely?
This actually might be a good place to call it after we finish. But the ambush was where I was definitely all in on this book. This fight at the farmhouse was so well described, and like actually got my adrenaline. I think I was walking my dog when I was listening to it, but it actually got my adrenaline up. It was such a exciting moment in the book.
Yeah, it's automatic shotguns, fucking, mounted machine guns on a hovercraft.
Sarah's like outmatched. You're starting to get worried for her, and then the fucking miniguns on the Panzer were up, and Cowboy just starts mowing people. The entire top half of a farmhouse he obliterates. Oh,
yeah.
It's so great. What is he describes it at one point, and he's like, it's when he's like he doesn't want to get searched or something like that, and it's like the state of Kansas was not known to want to have reserves of Kentucky was not known to want to have like reserves of sudden extreme violence.
Yeah. It was right as he got across the Mississippi.
Yeah.
He had to offload all that shit.
But it was that was so good.
I loved the ambush scene, and of course, they narrowly escape and start to realize they can rely on each other a little bit, even though nobody trusts each other. But
yeah,
just description of the top half of the farmhouse being disintegrated. I can picture it. Like,
yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we haven't addressed is that Earth is having a hard time. There are recurrent refugee crises, in part brought on by the Rock War and
climate change,
ecological devastation. Yeah, climate change.
Climate change is very specifically shouted out in this 1986 novel.
Yeah, weird, right?
And I love how he that's one of the reasons why Texan is such an insult is they slurped up all the water and never gave anything back. And now he thinks of the orbitals and the corporations as Texans.
So yeah, there are streams of refugees crisscrossing the country, and we get all through whenever they're going from one place or another. It talks about abandoned farmsteads and barns because like everybody couldn't make a living, and the orbitals fucking foreclosed on their farms and kicked them off their land. And now they're just these giant automated things with, an abandoned farmhouse off in the corner of a field or whatever.
Which, I don't know how many people have road tripped across Kansas and Missouri, but that's very fucking real, bro.
Yeah, Kansas, Missouri, good portions of Texas,
Iowa,
Arkansas.
Yeah, abandoned farmhouses in the middle of giant fields of food.
Yeah, fucking, barns with a tree growing out of the center of them. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing we forgot to mention earlier, just another descriptor of Cowboy, was after he finishes his first run and he has to hide out in one of those barns, and there is a young couple in there, which he tries to bribe. He's basically got like a go bag ready with a bribe in it. Like there's a check for $5,000 in here. If you get out of here and don't tell anybody about me, it's yours. And they didn't take the money as like a show of like, the will is still strong down. Like there's still integrity out here.
And they know that the guy, that these Panzer boys are smuggling stuff
they need,
that they need. So they're not going to betray one of them regardless.
Yeah. They didn't even take the money no matter how desperate they were. It was a good little scene that just kind of,
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also love every time they're trying to pay somebody off, everybody goes, like, what are you paying in? And whenever somebody says dollars, everybody's like, first reaction is, ugh. No. Dollars? No.
There's lots of different currencies.
Yeah.
Gold seems to be the best.
Stocks.
Gold, stocks, drugs, pharmaceuticals.
Hearts.
So I think that's a good place to stop at the end of the ambush. Maybe we should save it till the end of the convo, but at some point I want to talk about like the dystopia they're laying out here and how maybe we'll wait for the ratings, because it just seems like it could happen pretty easily. A lot of the stuff that's happening could happen pretty easily.
Given that it involves, space stations throwing rocks at Earth, I hesitate to call the dystopia like very boring and commonplace, but our reality has made like everything except for space stations are dropping rocks on Earth.
Think about three of our major billionaires are desperately trying to get into space, so it's definitely in the car.
Like
I that's one thing I don't agree with Jeff Bezos on very much, but I do think he should be shot into space.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All of them.
Yes. Yeah.
Space is great for them.
Or you know what? Submarine tour.
Submarines in space, bottom of the ocean, out in space, two places I would love to see billionaires go more.
Yep.
With or without craft.
Did I mention on the show? I know we were doing a show at the time. I think that the time when Jeff Bezos finally went to fucking space on his goddamn
penis,
on his big penis rocket, that launches from about 70 miles north of where I work in the summers, and basically flew directly overhead. uh, and we were going to work the day of the launch, and it we had just gotten to the site in the morning, and we heard and saw the rocket go overhead, and I was just thinking like, man, that mother, like, if that thing came down, we would have no recourse but to resort to cannibalism. I mean, it's just gonna, oh shit, shit's falling out of the sky. I guess we got to eat it.
Yeah. Delicious morsels from heaven.
Yeah.
If only you'd had a Panzer.
Yeah. Oh man, what a good time to have a Panzer. Or
a Delta.
A Delta, yeah.
Yeah.
Pony Express.
Well, that was the reason the gun ripped off the top of the farmhouse is because it was designed for anti-aircraft fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it couldn't aim low to shoot the people, but there was a sniper in the farmhouse. So yeah, that wasn't a problem anymore.
No.
Yep.
All right. This has been a good intro into the book and all the other stuff we talked about. We're gonna continue the conversation next week. If you came this far and haven't read the book, you got a week to read it. That's about all it took me, less than that, honestly, with the audiobook, which I think is free on. It's one of the ones you don't have to use a credit for on Audible. And the narrator in this audiobook, actually very good. So.
Oh, good.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
So he doesn't pronounce cowboy as like cowboy.
Cowboy. No. He's very good. He has little different voices for everybody. And nice. Very deep voiced man.
I like a good resonant audiobook reader.
Right. And you can clip it up to 1.5 and don't lose a lot on it, which became important last night as I realized I didn't have much time left.
Yeah.
This book is a very fast read. If you're reading it like
it clips style, the fuck along.
Yeah. It definitely does.
It's one of those you pick it up and then and you're like, oh, I'll read a couple pages, and then you put it down and you've gotten like 25% of the way through the book.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll finish it next week. Jeff, it's time to plug. Do you have anything you want to show?
Get involved with like your local community activism organizations. Meet people in real life. Help them out. Help them help others. If you need help, reach out to folks. Form communities, form coalitions. We need to stick together. And then also listen to my podcast, Astronomica.
Yes. Hey,
while
that's
you're doing
a community.
It is a community.
Yeah,
it is. It very much is. Yeah.
So it's our exploration of a hyper-capitalist future dystopia from, well, not necessarily hyper-capitalist, from the perspective of a bunch of people who are trying to get by
fans
and throwing some monkey wrenches into things as they go. And I play the weird robot.
He does a good job.
The weird robot and the alcove lurker.
And that's right. Scoidal Bell is the alcove lurker.
Yeah. We have begun communication to get Kristen on finally, so that's going to happen.
Good.
Just have to cement the plans.
Well, I'm glad you'll finally have someone on your show who won't go off into long tangents about peripheral issues.
Yeah.
Which is I hope you'll play that clip for her when she comes on. Or I hope she hears this. Kristen, I hope you hear that.
Yeah.
She's an editor. She gets it.
Uh-huh.
The psychic violence of creation.
That's right.
All right. Yeah. Everybody check out Astronomica. Check us out. I think there's probably going to be our unedited dystopia talk this week on Patreon at patreon.com/hightechlowlife. It'll be on the free version. You don't have to pay for it. But if you want to pay, there's some other stuff on there too. Also, I'm kind of abandoning Twitter. I gave up my account this week. I'm going all in on Blue Sky. I'm still going to promote the podcast on it, but I'm not going to be engaging too much on there. So if you want to talk, go to Blue Sky. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to say, yeah, I've completely abandoned Twitter, but I am still squatting on all my logins and usernames because I don't want some shithead to have them. So,
that dude might sell Twitter someday, and it might be cool to go back. I kind of want to leave. I deleted my Facebook this week completely, and that felt good. But Twitter, like, I'm gonna stick a wedge in the door in case the possibility to go back happens someday.
I hope sometime soon the estate of Elon Musk is divvied out and Twitter finds new hands.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Soon. Very, very soon.
Mm-hmm.
In Minecraft.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. I have a quote we could go out on, Josh, if you don't have a quote from this. It's not from the book though. It's just a general make myself feel better quote.
Let me go ahead and give that, and I'll pull up my quotes just in case.
I actually saw it on a TikTok. It's an indigenous guy quoted it. It's from John Trudell, who is an indigenous writer.
Oh, yeah.
Who wrote, "Protect your spirit because you are in the place where spirits get eaten." I think it's important to all protect our spirit right now.
I think that's a really good idea, and I am not going to come up with anything better than that.
All right. Well, then we'll see you next week, everybody.
Adios.
All right, bye-bye.
This has been the High Tech Low Life podcast. Find us on Twitter at Johnny60seconds, email us at hightechlowlifepodcast@gmail.com, and find us on Patreon at patreon.com/hightechlowlife. Theme music by Nihilor at nihilor.com. Thank you for listening.
Keep it moving. Come on, what are you waiting on? Let's go.
They're trashing our rights, man! They're trashing the fluid data! They're trashing! Trashing! Trashing!
Everybody,
Hide the planet!